Inflation. It's a word we hear often, but what does it truly mean? We hear it on the news, read about it in articles, and feel its effects in our daily lives. But how many of us truly understand what inflation is and how it impacts us? In simple terms, inflation is a rise in prices over time. This means that the cost of goods and services increases, making everything more expensive. Imagine your dollar as having less and less buying power as time goes on. That's inflation at work. The same dollar that could buy you a certain amount of goods last year will buy you less this year. Think about it this way. A gallon of milk that cost $2 last year might cost $2.50 this year. This is a clear example of how inflation affects everyday items. That's a 25% increase. And while it might not seem like much at first glance, these small increases add up over time. This gradual increase in prices might seem small at first, but it can have a big impact on our lives over time. For families on a tight budget, even a small increase in the cost of essentials can mean having to make tough choices. Inflation is a natural part of any healthy economy. It indicates that the economy is growing and that people are spending money. A little bit of inflation is actually a good thing. It encourages spending and investment, which helps the economy to grow. But when prices rise too quickly, it can become a problem. Rapid inflation can erode purchasing power, making it difficult for people to afford basic necessities. That's why it's important to understand the causes of inflation, its effects on our daily lives, and how we can protect ourselves from its negative impacts. By being informed, we can make better financial decisions and safeguard our future. There are several ways to protect ourselves from inflation. One way is to invest in assets that typically increase in value over time, such as real estate or stocks. Another way is to create a budget and stick to it, ensuring that you are not overspending and that you are saving for the future. By understanding inflation and taking proactive steps, we can mitigate its impact and ensure that our financial future remains secure. Inflation may be the silent thief, but with knowledge and preparation, we can keep it at bay and continue to thrive. Inflation doesn't just happen overnight. It's usually caused by a combination of factors like an increase in demand or a decrease in supply. Think about it like this. If everyone wants to buy a certain product but there isn't enough of it to go around, the price will naturally go up. That's called demand pull inflation. On the other hand, if the cost of producing goods and services increases due to things like rising oil prices or supply chain disruptions, businesses may have to raise their prices to maintain their profit margins. This is known as cost push inflation. Understanding the root causes of inflation is crucial in developing effective strategies to manage its impact. One of the most significant ways inflation affects us is by eroding our purchasing power. As prices rise, our hard-earned dollars simply don't stretch as far as they used to. Imagine you have $100 today. You could buy a nice dinner or fill up your gas tank a few times. But with an annual inflation rate of, say, 3%, that same $100 next year will only get you about $97 worth of goods and services. This means that over time, inflation can make it harder to afford the things we need and want, from groceries and housing to healthcare and education. Inflation and interest rates have a close relationship, often described as a seesaw. When inflation rises, interest rates tend to follow suit. This is because lenders, like banks, want to maintain the value of their loans. Think of it this way. If you lend someone $100 today and inflation is at 5%, you'll need to be repaid at least $105 next year just to break even. This is why interest rates on loans typically increase during periods of high inflation. On the flip side, higher interest rates can make it more expensive to borrow money for things like homes, cars, and education. Section 5. Living Standards in the Balance. How inflation shapes our quality of life. Inflation's impact extends beyond our wallets. It can also affect our overall quality of life. When the cost of everyday items like groceries, gas, and utilities increases, it can strain household budgets and force difficult choices. When prices rise faster than wages, it can lead to a decline in living standards, especially for those on fixed incomes or with limited savings. This is particularly challenging for individuals who rely on a steady paycheck or pension. For example, retirees living on a fixed pension may find it increasingly difficult to make ends meet as the cost of living continues to climb. They might have to cut back on non-essential items or even essential ones like medication or nutritious food. Similarly, families struggling to keep up with rising housing costs may have to cut back on other essential expenses, such as healthcare or education. This can have long-term effects on their well-being and future opportunities. Addressing inflation's impact on living standards requires a multifaceted approach, including policies that promote wage growth, protect vulnerable populations, and ensure access to affordable essential goods and services. Governments and policymakers need to work together to create a stable economic environment where people can thrive. Community support systems, such as food banks and shelters, also play a crucial role in helping those affected by inflation. These organizations provide immediate relief and support to individuals and families in need. Investing in education and healthcare is another essential strategy. By ensuring that people have access to quality education and healthcare services, we can help mitigate some of the negative effects of inflation and improve overall quality of life. Supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs can also help. When local businesses thrive, they create jobs and contribute to the economic stability of their communities, which can help buffer against the impacts of inflation. Ultimately, addressing inflation and its effects on quality of life requires a collective effort. By working together, we can create a more resilient and equitable society where everyone has the opportunity to prosper, regardless of economic challenges. Section 6. A blast from the past, comparing prices then and now. To truly grasp the impact of inflation, let's take a trip down memory lane and compare the prices of some common items from the past to their present-day counterparts. As you can see, the prices of even basic necessities have increased significantly over the years. This visual comparison highlights the very real erosion of purchasing power that inflation can cause over time. Section 7. The domino effect, unforeseen consequences of inflation. The effects of inflation can ripple throughout the economy, leading to a cascade of unforeseen consequences. For example, high inflation can discourage investment as businesses become uncertain about future costs and returns. This can stifle economic growth and job creation. Furthermore, persistent inflation can erode consumer confidence, leading to decreased spending and a slowdown in economic activity. This can create a vicious cycle where inflation further suppresses economic growth. Understanding these interconnected consequences is crucial for policymakers to develop effective strategies to mitigate the negative impacts of inflation. Section 8. Navigating the inflationary maze. Strategies for protection. While we may not be able to control inflation entirely, there are steps we can take to protect ourselves from its negative impacts. Inflation can erode the value of our money, making it crucial to adopt strategies that safeguard our financial well-being. One strategy is to invest in assets that tend to outpace inflation, such as stocks, real estate, or commodities. Stocks have historically provided returns that exceed inflation over the long term, while real estate can offer both rental income and property appreciation. Commodities like gold and silver often retain value during inflationary periods. Another approach is to focus on increasing your income through salary negotiations, career advancements, or side hustles. By seeking promotions, asking for raises, or diversifying your income streams, you can ensure that your earnings grow in line with or faster than inflation. By ensuring that your income keeps pace with or exceeds inflation, you can maintain your purchasing power over time. It's also wise to regularly review and adjust your financial plan to account for changing economic conditions. Additionally, it's essential to be a savvy consumer by shopping around for the best deals. Comparing prices, using coupons, and taking advantage of loyalty programs can help you save money on everyday expenses. Taking advantage of sales and discounts can significantly reduce your spending. Planning your purchases around sales events and bulk buying can also be effective strategies, and considering less expensive alternatives when possible. Opting for generic brands, buying secondhand items, and cooking at home with affordable ingredients can all contribute to stretching your budget further. By implementing these strategies, you can better navigate the challenges of inflation and protect your financial future. Section 9. Conclusion. Inflation and you. Knowledge is power. Inflation is a complex economic phenomenon that can significantly impact our lives. By understanding the causes of inflation, its effects on purchasing power, interest rates, and living standards, we can make more informed financial decisions and protect ourselves from its negative consequences. Remember, knowledge is power. By staying informed about inflation and its potential impact, we can navigate the economic landscape with greater confidence and secure our financial well-being in the long run.